watch.
Hey everyone!
Hi there! This is Karen at Simply Living for Him, and I'm with Durenda Wilson. We're sitting on my front porch. Durenda spent the night here last night with her husband. She's on a little vacation, and she stopped here at Love's Farm. And we were just sitting outside or walking and talking about all things homeschooling, and we decided to bring you guys in our conversation.
That's right. We've had a great conversation since we got here. Just ongoing, homeschooling moms, we're talking shop, right?
Durenda is very much on the same wavelength as me. My hair's a mess. And is on the same page as me in getting to the heart of things. And so if you're watching, we want to know if you're here, because I see
two eyeballs.
So if you're watching, let us know, because we want to talk to you too, and ask questions if you want, or
feel free to ask questions. I think the bulk of our conversation has really just been about how God's worked in our lives through homeschooling, and how the biggest encouragement we feel like we can give homeschooling moms is to listen to the voice of the Lord, to learn to hear his voice. And you were sharing that's really, when you guys decided to homeschool, that was really the first time you felt like God had really led you and really spoken clearly to your heart about what he wanted you to do. So that was sort of like the beginning of that life for you. But I think it's just so important that homeschooling moms understand that God will speak to you, and I know some of us aren't in a habit or understand maybe what that means, but if you continue to ask the Lord to reveal himself to you, he will. He absolutely will. And the hard part is tuning out all the other voices long enough to hear from him. And I think that's one thing we've seen happen in the homeschooling arena is just there's so much out there, so many voices telling us how to homeschool our kids. And since we started without the internet initially, we know what it's like to do it without all of that. Right. We still utilize it now, obviously, but
I want you to tell everybody, Durenda has 8 kids, and she has homeschooled all 8 of them. So this is your font of knowledge. If you want to know about homeschooling and you're watching, ask questions, because she's wise. She's done it how many years?
I think this is our 24th year, and we've graduated 6 so far, so we just have 2 left at home. And we were talking last night how the longer we homeschool, the more loosey-goosey we are, because we understand.
We get it. Those of you who read my post about how my perspective changed after my daughter graduated homeschooling, and I said everything became crystal clear. Like, as soon as I got out of it, I was like, oh, it all makes sense. And Durenda confirmed that that's a normal feeling.
It's absolutely normal. You graduate, you work so hard to get that first one graduated, and then it's like, okay, wait a minute. So all that, those hard things that maybe we tried to do that fell flat and we felt bad about, they didn't matter. You were saying, she was saying that she was texting her daughter periodically saying, I'm so sorry I made you do that really hard curriculum that you didn't even need, So I think our encouragement today to you is that it doesn't have to be hard all the time. Obviously there are pieces that you have to persevere in, but
you actually shared yesterday that even when it's hard, we were talking, that's part of it,
right?
That's part of it. That's a good thing
if you see it as an opportunity for growth. It may not be about the curriculum in that particular situation. It might be about, like we were talking about, sibling rivalry, and how just nurturing sibling relationships as we're homeschooling our kids, it proves to be a lot more of a part and parcel of our homeschooling than we ever anticipated. We're like, okay, we're going to homeschool our kids, we're going to do this stuff together, forgetting that the kids are going to be together all the time, and that means there's going to be more fighting, there's going to be more conflict, there's going to be more opportunity, which is what we decided it really is. It feels like an obstacle, but the reality is that those sibling squabbles are an opportunity to teach our kids what it looks like to walk in healthy relationships with each other. And I was just sharing with you, we have most of our kids are grown, and a couple of our sons had a little thing going on where they were in disagreement about something, and I won't go into the whole story, but the bottom line is the most important thing to those boys, ultimately, they're in they're 19 and 21, when it was all said and done, was I just want to have a good relationship with my brother. That's the most important thing to me. Now, what do I have to do to make that happen? And they talk to each other about that, and they work things out, and it wasn't about being right. It was about relationship. And so they shared that with us. They shared that with me, and I was so proud of them. And my son
That's
said,
the fruit of
yes,
of your journey.
And I just see this, and I got to experience this. And then my son said, yes, but you taught us, all those times I had to stop what we were doing and focus on, Lord, what do I do with these kids? How do we work out this relationship? And sometimes I would do funny things to help, like we were talking about the story this morning about those same two sons, by the way, as little kids fighting over handcuffs. So I handcuffed them together, and I made them clean the bathtub together.
I love
and
it.
They begged me. They said, please just take the handcuffs off. We promise we'll get along, forever, if you'll just let us clean the bathtub without handcuffs on. And they're telling me the story, and I didn't remember what the end was. And I'm like, what did I do? And they said, you didn't unhandcuff us. You left us handcuffed.
That's so
and I
funny.
said, that's so good. I'm so glad I did that.
See, you learn all kinds of things here.
Yes. So anyway, all that to say, we were talking about how much opportunity we have. Those interruptions during the day, if we can stop and recognize them.
That's part of the homeschooling journey. That's part of,
Right.
You're building relationships, you're discipling your children, and you're pointing them to the Lord.
Absolutely.
In all of it.
Yeah.
So Durenda and I also are talking about how the homeschooling community, we are sad for moms that are feeling so bogged down and so burdened by all the stuff and feeling like you need to get everything done and keeping up with things. And now that you've had so much experience, why don't you share? Because I just love your heart about,
Right.
the joy that really is there, and it doesn't have to be so regimented.
Right. Well, we were sitting around the table talking, and I just said, and you agreed, you felt the same way, that we're almost embarrassed to tell people that homeschooling has been joyful for us. I mean, I would say, if you're going to give it a percentage, 80% joyful, 20%, sometimes hard and work and trying to figure things out. But 80% of it, I can honestly say, has been really, really joyful. And that's not because I found the right curriculum or, figured out the master plan that was going to work ever and always.
Right.
It was really about understanding that homeschooling and life together, they're all one thing. This living life alongside of each other. You were sharing that earlier. Like sharing life together. That's what this is about. And the schoolwork is part of that, but
Right.
it is not the bulk of it.
Right.
And the joy came from understanding that and letting our family be who they were. So for us, 5 boys, that's a lot of boys. And so we leaned more towards, the boys were outside a lot. They needed that activity. They needed breaks between subjects. And there was a lot, we talked about this, how forced learning is not actually learning.
Right. Do you hear that? Forced learning is not actually learning. Learning takes place when your kids are interested. And we were just talking about the timetables. Like, you have 12, 13 years to homeschool, and not getting stuck on, they need to know this in first grade. They need to know this in second grade. They need to know this in third grade. You have 13 years to teach them.
It's a bunch of baloney.
You're
It
gonna
really
get it.
is.
You're gonna get it all in, and you can get it all in such real and tangible and meaningful ways
Yes.
where your kids are gonna be involved, hands-on in life, immersed in life,
Right.
learning. And it doesn't have to take place in this workbook in first grade and this curriculum in second grade, and they need to have these skills by third grade. Kids are not on that man-made timetable that we have invented. They are on a timetable of learning, and they will learn at their own pace. And I feel bad for moms that are getting bogged down by these, spreadsheets of what they should know when you have this 12, 13 years with them to build a beautiful family relationship that is centered around God, that is centered around each other, and walking with the Lord together. And learning takes place all within that. And you use the word organic.
Right.
Little crunchy mom.
Yeah. That's right.
But it's so true, you guys that follow me here, you see how we use the goats and the chickens in the garden and all that, and we use that for learning. And it's not like, okay, but you know what, in 4th or 5th grade they're supposed to learn this specific in science. I mean, we're learning so much That isn't on a specific timetable, and it's probably more than we would be if we were on. And when our kids are interested in it, they're invested in it, and they want to know more.
Right, and that's when you're watching for that soil that's ready for planting or whatever. You were talking about how your son was not really a reader, and then at a certain point, goats became an interest, and all of a sudden he was literally copying things from books and just reading, and that was it, you know. And I can testify to the same thing about each one of our kids. At a certain point, it was a different time for all of them. It was a different topic for all of them. If we can learn to let go and just let our kids be who they are, that doesn't mean we don't have any structure, obviously. For us, the only way that I could keep that joy in our homeschooling days was to keep our life simple. That meant in the mornings, we made sure that we did math, language, and handwriting. Every day that got done for the most part, except when they were all really little. I was lucky if I got 3 days a weekend, and you know what? They're all fine.
Yeah,
they're
all her kids are
fine.
Successful.
Exactly. But we just did the basics in that every day, and then the kids followed their interests in the afternoon. That gave me a chance to be a sane mother, because I needed that time to do some other things. You know, life couldn't be homeschooling all day long, but yet my kids were learning all day long. And so I think just finding that rhythm for your family, and you're always going to be tweaking a little bit here and there, but go with the peace. Go with the things that are bringing your family joy, things that are breathing life into your family, instead of sucking the life out of it. And you know when that's happening. Like it's
okay to have joy in your homeschool, right? It's what we were saying.
This does not have to be a drag.
Like people, it's like you get into this mode of like, we're going to complain about it. It's so hard. And we don't want to be like that. It's joyful.
And the thing is, I think that some people do that as a sense of like, it gives them some sort of value if, you know, they're somehow miserable to a certain degree. Come on, people. You know, this is not what God's called us to. He has called us to joy. We should be looking different than the world does.
And it's okay to have joy. It's okay to admit that we enjoy it, right? And the other thing we were talking about is success and what defines success in your homeschool. And I think that's something super important if you're a homeschooler or not, no matter what, that you should be thinking about, you know, what is success to you, because it's not going to necessarily look like the world. Just like you said, we are supposed to blend in. Success is really, like I always say, the most important life skill you will teach your child is to follow God, to seek God first in everything they do. Not reading, writing, math, or any of these other life skills. If they're seeking God first in everything they do, then everything they do is an outflow of their relationship with God. That to me is success. That is what defines success.
And God takes care of them. I mean, I've watched God just provide in all these different ways for each of our grown kids as far as where their careers are going, what they're doing as adults. He's been in all of it, you know, and part of that process is just, you know, when they get towards graduating from high school, you're hopefully to a point where they're owning what they're doing, and we're just there sort of coaching them and encouraging them to hear from the Lord. You know, when my boys would come to us and say, you know, well, I don't know if I should do this or I should do this, and we'd be like, you know what, let's talk about, you know, what do you see the good and the bad and all of this, and then, okay, well, I think just pray about it and just see, you know, or I would just ask them, what do you feel like God is telling you? I'm so asking questions more than telling them what to do. And that is what helps them make that transition into adulthood and learning to hear from the Lord and all of that. But I wanted to share one thing that we talked about this morning, that when you talk about the scope and sequence and what our kids are learning at certain points, I heard very early on in our homeschooling journey that it actually takes 2 years to learn everything that they need to know for high school. So you really have from kindergarten to 8th grade to cover 2 years worth of material, solid material. Okay, so that means when I heard that, it just lifted this burden and allowed me to give my kids the time and space that they needed and that I needed. And that brought so much freedom. And I can say from hindsight that it was very, very, very true. Very true.
Because a lot of that is busy time.
It's busy
There's
work.
a lot of busy time going on in school. So like Durenda's saying, the actual time of knowledge and learning is 2 years. That's crazy.
So,
that should be so freeing if you're a homeschooler.
Exactly. You can relax, take a breath, and enjoy your kids,
Enjoy
you guys.
it, yes.
Seriously.
It goes so fast.
It does. Now take it from a mom has one that just left, and I've got 6 that left in 6 years.
Wow.
So that's been a real woo, But all that to say, it does give you some hindsight, and you realize the things that stand out are the relationship with your kids, because we still have very good relationships with all of our kids.
And that's so important.
And they come to us when they've got, not for everything, because they're not dependent on us, but when they feel like they need to talk to us, they come to us.
Right.
And we listen and we pray with them and we ask questions, and we just, there's that great relationship, kind of adult life relationship with our kids. And it's really beautiful. And it's a privilege to be part of it, because you get to see how God's working in their lives as adults. And it's just wonderful. So, and all that,
the fruit of the really, focusing on the things that matter most.
Right. Making that investment is a worthwhile investment, because when it's all said and done, that's all that's going to matter. So if you're fighting with your kid about math today, just forget it.
Yeah. It's not going to help.
Go get some ice cream.
Right.
Take them out for hot chocolate.
Build the relationship.
The
academics will follow. I say that all the time.
And
it's not that the academics aren't important, but if you don't have a good foundation, then you're not going to be able, you're just going to be checking off boxes.
Exactly.
And then having resentment.
Right.
All that.
And we're not saying that you never have structure. We had structure, but we also had a lot of margin within those activities and those things that we did kind of the same thing every day, but there was margin in our day. And I think that's a huge thing that people aren't giving themselves, is margin. Kids need time to think. We need time to think, but kids need time to think. And what I've noticed when I gave our kids that time in that space is every one of them learned on their own how they learn. And that fed into them becoming lifelong learners, because they knew, I need to hear this and write it, or I need to, they figured that out on their own.
That's so cool.
Because they were allowed to follow the things that were interesting to them. So as they did that, that just sort of propelled them into that. And so that's really fun to see as adults, like I was telling you last night, our 24-year-old son, who is a software engineer with a degree and 2 minors, bought a sewing machine.
I love that.
And this is the mom who hated sewing and tossed her sewing machine a long time ago.
You weren't the homeschool mom who made all your own clothes?
No.
You didn't make your denim jumpers?
I'm all about the Goodwill and the consignment shop. But he wanted to learn how to make canvas bags. He couldn't really find any that he really liked, and he just wanted to do it himself. So he bought himself a sewing machine, and he's teaching himself how to do that. And I'm just cracking up.
That's so cool.
And that's just one of many interests that, our kids have. So.
And that's what we ultimately want. We want our kids to be able to, learn and teach themselves things and be self-sufficient. And, but God dependent.
Right.
I always hesitate when I say self-sufficient.
Yeah, exactly.
God's,
That's exactly right.
But,
so, it's been a good conversation. We've had a good talk.
So we had fun. Durenda is so much on the same page as me when it comes to life and homeschooling, and it was so fun that she came here to visit.
Yes.
And you guys should check her out at her page. I tagged it here. And her book, The Unhurried Homeschooler, on Amazon is so good. It's extremely popular. Every homeschooler should read it.
I read your book called Home long before I wrote my book.
Well, so anyway, we have the same.
That,
we have the same type of. When I read her book, I was like, "We are the same."
That's how I felt.
This woman.
When I read your book, I didn't ever think that I'd be on the front porch.
I was going to say, did you ever think? Didn't you get it out of the library or something?
I did.
So Durenda told me she got my book out of the library, which is how she found out about me, and now we're sitting on the front porch.
You just never know what God's going to do.
No.
So are there questions here? Or do we need to push anything?
I have no idea. I never do it this way.
Okay. Oh, no, that means we're going to type. So if you guys have any questions or anything, we think it'll pop up here.
Yeah. We're just shooting the breeze on the porch.
Exactly.
But if not, we can always answer them later.
That's true. You can drop them in the comments and we can answer them later. But this was really fun.
This was fun. Thank you. All right, we're going to go. So leave questions if you want, and we'll answer them. And have a great day. Bye, everybody.